PD of the Hawai'i Workers Center, just newly appointed. As we have newly established ourselves as an organization, Hawai'i Workers Center was launched on May 1st. And it's actually, if you go to our website, it's actually its aim and its vision is to help organize and provide services to to people who are low income, people who are disenfranchised, and non-unionized people. So this organization was actually organized by a core group of people. Mainly, I introduced John Widick, who is everybody knows John Widick, I guess. Nobody so far, I hope I know that doesn't know John. And then also Mary, who is also an organizer, and Yoko and me. So these are the core group that put together the Hawai'i Workers Center. And hopefully we will be of service to the our targets of unemployed or low-income, non-unionized workers. So I would like to introduce to you our speaker today. He is an attorney, and he actually, until last month, he actually is the external director of the Legal Aid Society of Hawaii. And but he is now on just left legal aid for a while, and I intend to be back there. So he is very well versed of this subject. So Sergio, it's your floor now.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Yoko, and thank you, Mary, again for inviting me to speak on this issue. Yeah, as Tony had mentioned, I was previously with the Legal Aid Society of Hawaii, and these were some of the issues that were coming up and we're starting to see. And I'm grateful for the Hawai'i Workers Center for focusing on this area and just finding ways to be able to help. So I'd like to just provide an overview. From what I understand, there's a lot of community leaders in this call, and there's many people that you're maybe helping apply for unemployment insurance, or they come to you naturally for questions. And then hopefully this can just provide an overview, point you in the right direction. And again, just, as for legal disclaimers, so this isn't meant to provide legal advice, it's just meant to provide legal information. So the information here, it's available to the public. But if there are specific questions that you do have, I believe we do have a question and answer period afterwards. Tony, Yoko, yeah. And what we can do also, if there's questions that I don't know the answer to, I'll write them down, and then I can follow up on Tony with Tony and Yoko afterwards. Try to find some of those answers. Yeah. So I'll go ahead and start then on kind of the overview, Tony, Yoko, okay. Yeah. So I think everyone's seen in the news or they've heard, friends applying for unemployment insurance, and kind of just the nightmare that the system that we had set up at the time just wasn't prepared for the volume of applications that we had. I guess our system was a little bit antiquated, and there was just no way, it's going to be able to handle all those claims, people applying at the same time. So I do have a friend that it took her about a month and a half, from the time that she applied until she started getting benefits. Actually, a little bit more, almost 2 months, that it took her to go through the process from the time that she was out of work to the time that she finally started receiving a check. And during that time, she was trying to call, she was trying to contact, the unemployment office. She was, she was receiving letters in the mail with them, but at the same time, there was some confusion. She wasn't sure if she was doing it right. So those are the issues that we're facing with, and I'm sure many of you on this call, those are some of the issues that that your communities are also facing with. So I'd like to provide kind of an overview, on kind of the process and what to do now that we are in June and a lot of people have been out of work probably since March. We're suspecting that maybe some denials are starting to come in. I believe, people were, they made it so that it's a little bit easier for people to apply. The governor had waived some requirements in terms of, finding work. And our state was trying to make it easier for people to get benefits. But I'm suspecting now, or, we believe that some denials are starting to come in for people, and that's kind of the next part of the process, is how to work through those denials. Okay. Oops. Just give me 1 second. Let me see if I can just go to the next slide. Okay. Yeah. So who qualifies? So basically, it's just an overview of unemployment insurance is, and I know many of you already know kind of what it is, but it just kind of helps ground me of where we are in the process. So unemployment benefits, it provides temporary income when people lose their job through no fault of their own. So the money, it's meant to replace people's lost earnings. It's a fraction of it, and helps you pay expenses while you're looking for new work. So really the purpose is that, while you're looking for work, you have at least a little bit of money that you can live off. I wouldn't say you can live completely off of it, but at least you have some money for your expenses. And the purpose, again, is to get you back to work as soon as possible. But of course, with COVID-19, the challenges that a lot of our workers were facing, it's not the typical unemployment scenario where, they were able to find jobs right away. So who's eligible for it? So workers who can legally work in the United States. That includes lawful permanent residents. That includes immigrants with employment authorization documents, and that also includes COFA migrants. And then there's another form of unemployment insurance. So it's the pandemic unemployment assistance. It expands unemployment insurance benefits to for people that normally wouldn't qualify for unemployment insurance. So this would include independent contractors, freelancers, workers seeking part-time work, and just people that don't have enough work history. I think really the purpose of the CARES Act was to provide some sort of assistance for, for as many people as possible. Okay. 1 second. Oops. Okay. So in terms of eligibility, and I think this is maybe some of the confusion in the beginning, which is people didn't know who qualified. It was just all of a sudden there was this money available, and people were told to apply. Okay, so in terms of people that are eligible, so if people had, I know we're starting to slowly get back into work, but if we're looking around March, around March when the first order came out, a lot of places were shut down. A lot of employers told the employees to stay home. So those, those were that was kind of the background where we started. So if people were, their employers reduced their hours, if they're self-employed or they needed to stay home and take care of a family member. I'm going to use an example of my friend. She's actually works in a restaurant. English isn't her strongest language. She actually speaks Japanese. She works at a Japanese restaurant, and kind of just seeing her apply, just kind of navigate from the beginning this entire process. So, I'm going to use her as an example. I think initially when her restaurant shut down, of course, all of a sudden she didn't have a job. Her boss just told her to go on unemployment, and she had problems going on the website, navigating it by herself. Navigating by herself and trying to make phone calls. It wasn't the easiest thing for her. But considering that her place of employment was shut down basically by the city as a restaurant, so she would have qualified for this. People that don't qualify, so if they were just basically told to stay home and work, but they're still getting paid, if they were, teleworking, if they were taking sick leave or they were taking vacation leave, they normally did not, or they just didn't qualify. So in essence, if you were still receiving some sort of pay while you were at home from your employer, then in essence, you didn't qualify for unemployment insurance. Okay. And this special pandemic unemployment assistance that was provided in the CARES Act, so basically it tried to create a larger net for people to be able to qualify. So we have a lot of people that are, I guess we would, term them gig workers, people that work for rideshare companies, working for Uber, working for Lyft. So they normally wouldn't qualify. Or for someone that just didn't have enough work history, for the regular unemployment insurance. So those are kind of the two types of assistance that are available for people at the moment. We have our normal unemployment insurance, and then we have this pandemic unemployment assistance. But in terms of the application process, they're both very similar. You both go through the website, and it's just one is for unemployment insurance and one is for this special assistance. And I would urge everyone that's on the call, just visit the website itself. It's the Department of Labor Hawaii.gov website. Everything that you need in terms of application, contact information, and directions are all on there. Okay, so denials and appeals. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the denials and appeals process. Honestly, this is something of a new area for us in terms of how to help people that are getting denied and kind of the appeals process. So for the Department of Labor, they actually have a dedicated email. So I think I had some questions where people were asking that, they were making phone calls to this phone number, no one was getting back to them. But they created a special email just for this. There may be different reasons why people are getting denied. I go back again to my friend who was denied initially. It was just very confusing. She received two letters. One letter basically said she was approved, and another letter said she was denied. And I think she wasn't sure exactly what to make of it, right? And there was no one that she could contact. She would stay on the phone for an hour, half an hour, nobody would pick up. And I think that's where it was confusing. I think finally, I want to say probably in the beginning of May, when they had more people able to answer phones and more people able to look at applications, she was able to provide a little bit more information, and they were able to pass her application through. But in response to that, they did create a special email. So if you know anyone that was denied, first I would go through this email, respond back to this email. Basically, there's some directions on here. You just need to submit their full name, the last four digits of their social security number, and a telephone number, and a screenshot of their disqualification. And I think for us, I know one of the initial issues that we were concerned with was that if people didn't have access either to a computer, they didn't have access to internet, or they had language barriers, how would they be able to go through this process? So I think this is where it's important to have community leaders such as yourselves to be able to help advocate for them. I would say that's step one, is just send this email out to them, and hopefully that now the state has a little bit more time to catch up on some of those applications, and they should be able to respond back via email. If that doesn't work, or I'm sorry, at the same time, I would also call this phone number, 833-901-2275. That phone number was dedicated specifically for these applications, and that was a phone number that the state had set up in response to kind of just overwhelming phone calls. And also, I would recommend that anytime you do make communications with the office, just record or advise people to to record the information that they're who they spoke with, what they spoke about. Even if nobody picked up the phone, they should just still jot down when they called, how many times they called, how long did they try. Those are, I think that's information that will be helpful down the road later on if they do need to go through the denials or appeals process. So if in this scenario, if somebody did receive basically a letter saying that it's a notice of decision on unemployment insurance claim, basically it will let them know if they were approved or if they were denied for their claim. From the date that they received that letter, if they were denied, they can request for reconsideration or file for an appeal with the Employment Security Appeals Office. So basically, they have 10 calendar days from the time they receive the letter or from the time that the envelope is dated. If for some reason they're not able to meet that 10 calendar days, the appeal period can be extended to 30 more calendar days for good cause. So if you file an appeal or request reconsideration, at the same time, don't stop filing your claim certifications. So in this case, if somebody was initially approved and then now for some reason they received another letter that was denying them, they should still continue to follow through the process. People can actually do it online now. And here is the website. If you go directly to the hawaii.gov labor website, you can file it online as well. Okay. In terms of what people should start doing, so they can prepare and file a signed written statement. So they don't really, it doesn't have to be that detailed. It's basically just a short explanation, basically letting them know that they're going to file an appeal. And these are some of the basic information that they need. They need to include their name, the current address and telephone number, social security number in the appeal statement. I have it on here that you can claim with the claims office or just with the Employment Security Appeals Office. But I would recommend going through the website that they have available right now. I believe a lot of resources have been dedicated to go online. And again, this is where the concern is for people that aren't as computer savvy or they may have language barriers. Okay. The important thing, I guess, with this part, with the appeal statement, is just making sure that there's a copy of the determination or notice, the letter that people received saying they were denied. Just make sure that's part of the appeal. Okay, and then just one more point of practice. If the postmark date on the envelope it doesn't match the mailing date that's shown on the determination notice, just make sure that they keep the envelope for proof of the beginning date of the appeal period. I don't know, for some reason people may not get their mail or they just have difficulty getting their mail. If they miss those initial 10 days, at least you can keep a copy of that envelope when it was postmarked. And then that should be enough good cause for you to extend it to 30 days. Okay. So in terms of the process, so the local office, they'll send documents basically explaining why it was appealed. They'll set a hearing date. They'll let you know the time, place of the hearing, and what the issue is to be heard. So normally they'll give you 15 days notice in preparation for the hearing. So what's I guess critical for this process is it's more of an informal hearing. So it's not necessarily like you're in front of a judge or you're in court. It's an administrative hearing. There's a hearings officer, and then you have a chance to be able to present the evidence that you have of why they should find in your favor. Okay, and just to help people prepare, if they can start preparing their pay stubs, if they can start preparing any documents that they may have that proves or that disproves what the determination letter initially had, that would be helpful. They can find witnesses, if they have coworkers that's willing to testify on their behalf, or that's willing to speak on their behalf. Those are also helpful. Basically, this is the chance to be able to present their evidence in front of this hearing appeals officer to let them know why they may have made a mistake. Okay. And if you're assisting, I would ask that you also review the determination letter just to understand why the claims examiner denied the initial application, or why they got what the issue was. Consider whether those facts are correct. And then I think it's also helpful if they're not able to, if they don't have a traditional work history where, they have an employer that, pays them on certain dates, but for them to be able to just make chronological notes about, this is when I worked, this is where I worked at, just whatever can make it easier for them when they go through this process. These are some helpful materials that for them to start gathering: pay statements, employment agreements, time cards, anything that shows that they have some sort of work history during that time. Okay. So the appeals hearing, again, as I said, is very informal. The hearings are recorded. There's also conducted by an impartial appeals officer. And I think right now, with the way COVID is and our state slowly getting back into, people working back in their offices, this may have changed where it may even be remote. I know our courts are still kind of working remote, so it may not be as initially laid out. But in terms of the process for the hearing, this is normally how it's usually laid out. It normally takes about 30 to 60 minutes. During that time, it's basically your time to present as much evidence as you can to correct the determination. And then afterwards, the appeals officer is going to mail a written decision, to you, whether or not they agree with you. You do have, a chance. If you don't agree with that decision, you do have a chance to reopen again, and it has to be for good cause. Within 30 days of receiving that decision, if you have some new information that you didn't have available at the time for some reason, you just need to have some sort of good reason why it wasn't provided at the time. So you do have one more chance to be able to appeal that decision. And if you don't appeal, or if you don't agree with that decision again, you do have one more recourse to go through circuit court. But I think at that point, that takes a little bit more resources, but hopefully you can get everything done during this appeals hearing. Okay. So, even for us at Legal Aid, we pretty much just relied on the information that was being provided by the Department of Labor website. That's where people were being, that's where people needed to submit their application. If they had questions, those were kind of the contact, the contact points that people needed to reach if they had questions. So now, they provided special emails or special contact for, for some of the issues or that are more issue specific. So if people needed to backdate their initial applications, there's a special email now that they've dedicated for it. It's basically it's the first week of less than full employment due to COVID. And it's, they've tried to streamline the process a little bit. So they just need to submit their full name, the last 4 digits of their social, telephone number, and the week that they want to claim they're backdated to. And then finally, just another area of issue that I think when the pandemic initially hit, which was people that had issues with language barriers. Even this one, for just people to be able to know that they can actually, there's a special email that if they need a dedicated translator, they can, it's their right to request for language assistance. If you need someone that speaks Chuukese or Marshallese or Cosrayan or Ilocano, it's their right, so they can ask for that. 12:31 p.m. Okay. And I think I provided some of this earlier, but for general questions, these are the special phone numbers that the state set up. It's 833-901-2275. And then also there are the local offices for the neighbor islands. And also they can also email, or you can also email, your office, your office on your island. And then finally, as other resources, we do have the Legal Aid Society of Hawaii is available. They're available Monday through Friday from 9 to 11:30 and from 1 to 3:30 at 808-536-4302. So if there is, the focus initially was for people that didn't have access to a computer, or they had technology barriers, or they had language barriers. We advise people just to call Legal Aid and see if there's an advocate there that can help people apply. We do have resources on the website that's available in Chuukese, Marshallese, Cosrayan, and Filipino. So I advise people to visit our the Legal Aid Society of Hawaii website at www.legalaidhawaii.org. And finally, Legal Aid, they've been doing a few Facebook Live sessions in the different languages. So I believe there's one tomorrow in Chuukese regarding healthcare questions. So, and at the same time, people are able to ask questions there. So I would advise people to visit the Facebook Live page or the Facebook page for the Legal Aid Society of Hawaii. And then finally, Another resource that people can go to is our court self-help centers. So we do have volunteer attorneys that are available at these court self-help centers. They're open on different days. Right now, it's all available remotely. So if you're on the neighbor island or if you're not on Oahu, there are different phone numbers as well. For people that are on Honolulu, the Access to Justice Room, it's available Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 9 to 1. And we just ask people to call the phone number first, and they can speak to a volunteer attorney there. And this is just not for issues that's related to unemployment insurance, but for a lot of people in our community that are facing maybe questions around landlord-tenant questions, around issues. As the courts start to open up, landlords may be taking more of their tenants to court now to try to evict them for non-payment of rent. But these are other resources that are available as well. And then finally, the HawaiiWorkersCenter.org webpage that Yoko prepared a lot of resources on there that have been very helpful as well. And with that, I'm just going to turn it back over to Yoko and Tony.